So let's talk about all the wins that the people have gotten recently, as yesterday with the district court judges just lobbing L after L after L against the Trump administration. So we're going to discuss those. But briefly, I also want to talk about this video here where Elon Musk was essentially crying about the impact of him meddling in American businesses, dismantling American agencies, firing American workers, and the impact that's having on his businesses, in addition to the other horrible things he's done to other people in other nations and other political systems around the world. Listen to this.
How are you running your other businesses?
With great difficulty.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that really quickly. And I also want to talk about here, Chief Justice Roberts yesterday issued a rare rebuke of the Donald Trump social media post essentially calling for the impeachment of judges who follow the law and interpret the law as they're supposed to do as Article 3 judges and follow the law in a way that Trump does not like and say, we're calling for the impeachment. That doesn't work. The man is lawless and doesn't believe in law or the Constitution or balance of powers or the articles or any of the amendments or the laws of the Congress passes and anything, process, procedure, structures, everything. He should not be president of the United States because he's lawless, he's a criminal, and he doesn't respect it. And Chief Justice Roberts was not the only conservative justice to believe this. As recent as last June, let's look at this really quickly. Last June, in a decision that overturned Chevron, which is a case that says that courts are supposed to defer to agencies that are experts. In that decision, that landmark case last year that overturned Chevron, they essentially said that the judiciary is the ultimate arbiter of what's right and what's not. And the judiciary, over the executive agencies, have the right to interpret the law. Judiciary. Donald Trump's calling for the impeachment of a judiciary for doing what the conservative justices, including Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, Justice Gorsuch, Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, all agreed with that opinion that Chief Justice Roberts wrote. Marbury versus Madison, which is a long, long, long time ago, essentially established that judicial review authority. And all those conservative justices signed on to that. So now let's see if they're going to hold up to that when these cases percolate to the top where Donald Trump is incorrectly overreaching, extending, ignoring the Administrative Procedure Act, ignoring First Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, all those amendments. You'll see in the review of the cases soon that he lost on because he was like, you're not going to win because you're just not following the law. It's like simple. People just like, judges can't tell them to do. Yes, they can. I want to pause to recognize here that the Chevron doctrine and then the Loomer that overrules Chevron, all of them dealt with ambiguity. What Donald Trump is doing, there's no ambiguity. There's no room for interpretation. He is blatantly, flagrantly flaunting basic laws, the constitutional laws, the Administrative Procedure Act, separation of powers, ultra virus. There's no wiggle room. There's no interpretation. There's no room to say maybe is this. No, it's cut and dry. He's just overreaching. Well, and here's the thing: they shouldn't have given him criminal immunity. And they created this monster. Chief Justice Roberts, you created this monster. He did not deserve criminal immunity. The president should not be above the law, even criminal law. Now you create this monster. This monster thinks that the criminal immunity decision applies across the board to all laws. Not just civil laws, not just criminal laws, but also civil laws, the Constitution, whatever, they're civil. I don't think Donald Trump understands the difference because he's stupid. So you gave him criminal immunity, but the dumbass think that means immunity against other things. Yes. All right. So what are the wins? Let's go through the wins. The biggest win is Judge Alsup in Northern District of California ordering the Trump administration to return all probationary employees back. Remember when I talked about the decision, Judge Alsup said that essentially the probationary workers are good workers and the Trump administration attempted to rob the nation of good quality workers who had good reviews for some arbitrary blanket sort of mass firing. He says you can't fire people en masse saying they didn't meet performance reviews when that's an individual by individual basics. There's no such thing as bulk firing. And he said, so put them back. The Trump administration started the process of putting them back, and then they decided and said, we're going to pay you guys and put you on administrative leave. So you're hired back, but temporarily. You don't have to work. We're going to pay you. Hello, taxpayers. This entire thing is a waste of time. Not just firing all these workers to have them sued. We're going to have to pay for these lawsuits. Now we're paying for the people to come back, and you're telling us we're paying for them to not work because you anticipate, which is not going to happen, that the Supreme Court is going to greenlight your unlawful firing or eventual firing. The Trump administration essentially is Russia. American people, the federal workers, we are Ukraine. They're trying every which way to pound us, to get rid of us, to punish us, to kill the will of the American workers, the American people. That is the Trump administration. They are the Russia of the American government. We are Ukraine, trying to fight for our rights. Anyway, so the judge says, put them back. The Donald Trump administration says, we're going to give them administrative leave temporarily. So these folks are like, oh, okay, we're coming back. We're not coming back. Okay, we're going to leave. We're not. And in the middle of that, they appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, hoping the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals will let them stay the rehiring. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals no, because you're most likely going to lose, because you cannot fire en banc a bunch of people en masse for performance. There's no way you could have reviewed every single one of those performances. And then when we look at them, a lot of them actually had great performances. So you're firing them for no reason. The law doesn't let you fire people for no reason. You can't just be firing people for no reason. So no. That was a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal 2-1 decision. So put them back. Then the judge and you cannot put, Judge Aslip was you cannot just give them administrative leave. I said rehire them to do their work. These people are servants. They have a calling. They gave up private sector, which makes more money. They have to undergo, a lot of them, drug testing, some, depending on your rank, financial disclosures. They put a lot on their line to serve the people. Unlike Donald Trump, who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Elon Musk, all these private sector goons he brought in from the tech industry, from the private sector worlds, they're not service-oriented people. They don't know what these people do. They're just cutting jobs. They're just cutting these. They have no idea how government functions or what government does. And so to them, it's easy to just cut the livelihoods of people. They don't see them as human beings. They don't see them as service workers. They don't appreciate to the extent that what they do help them with when they're going off, when their trips, when they're eating their healthy granolas. Federal Drug Administration, folks, make sure your food's healthy. You know, the OSHA, when you're working and you're going on a construction site to buy your house and you're on a construction site, OSHA makes sure that construction site is safe. So OSHA gets dismantled. The construction is safe. Where you're going to check to see your next beach house and you fall through the cracks and you're unalive, that's government. You guys don't understand what government does and appreciate government work, appreciate the service. So that's why you're just trying to cut ceremoniously, erroneously, whatever, because you just don't know. And that's why private sector people stay out of public sector business. I digress. Anyway, so the judge was like, no, I didn't say administrative leave. I said put them back. The next big win is another judge. Chung said, by the way, Elon, Doge, you guys aren't supposed to be doing that. You can't dismantle the entire USAID and fire the workers and take the signs off the walls and decide that the office can be. You can't do that unless you're actually given what's the thing? You're greenlit by the Senate. You are independent. You're acting like an agent. You're acting like a cabinet. You're giving yourself power that ordinarily advisors don't have. So long as you're out here dismantling stuff, tearing signs off the walls, sending people home, Marco Rubio, shame on you. You need to be actually, that's a clause in the United States government that says you need to be a disappointment clause. You need to be appointed. You need to be a greenlit and actually approved by the U.S. Senate, Elon Musk, to do everything to do. Until you're approved by the Senate to do everything you do, every single thing you've done in terms of dismantle USAID, because that's the case that was brought, unwind all of that. Remove it. Hire all the people back. That's what Judge Cheng said. This is great. This is juicy, because if this holds up in the Supreme Court, which I expect it will, that means that Elon's going to have to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate. Elon, the most unpopular Elon, who the citizens of red states are grilling their representatives for greenlighting Elon. So now those senators have to eventually actually confirm Elon. In order for Elon to unwind, in order for Elon to do everything he's needed to get done, he needs to have been confirmed by the U.S. Senate. So now there's a big dare. Like, you're so worried about Elon Musk being primary. Your own citizens who've already said they do not like what Elon's doing is going to primary you if you vote to confirm Elon to do what he's supposed to do per Judge Chung's decision. So I firmly believe that Judge Chung's decision is going to be upheld on the next level, and the U.S. Supreme Court too as well. So you can't do that. What he's doing is out of the bounds. You can't. You have independent authority to cut and do all this stuff. That's unprecedented, and that's not the way our founders. If you're a Federalist, if you remember the Federalist Society, Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, you know very well that is way outside the bounds of what the Federalist would agree with. So check yourself. Also, Judge Anna Reyes The first Latina and LGBTQIA member of the district court federal judge blocked the Trump administration's attempt to not allow transgender members of the military to serve. So she's like, no, you can't do that. Read her opinion. It's so good and juicy. And she really gets into it. She talks about how there's a lot of people going to be talking about this. For the most part, you can't be discriminated against them. You just can't. That's not, they're all the laws. You can't do it. So another win. So that's 3. Then in addition, another judge blocked the Trump administration's attempt to try to withhold and stop grant funding for states that use the grant funding to hire out teachers and recruit widely as part of their anti-DI, their racist, sexist agenda. This is the racist, sexist administration. And if you voted for them and you're a woman and you're a person of color and you're a white man who thinks you're a decent person, you voted for racist, sexist administration. Anyway, so they tried to stop block funding, and the court was like, you can't do that. No, give them back their funding. For especially considering the fact that Congress apportioned the funds, they were issued the grants, they won the grants. You can't revoke someone else's funding. The Trump administration tried to punish the law firm that represented the folks who filed lawsuits against him when he was president. Again, he's on his revenge tour, and he issued an executive order, and they say that violates ultra-virus. Presidents don't have the right to discipline lawyers. First Amendment rights. You can't do that. That violates our First Amendment right. The government can't do that. Sixth Amendment right. You're trying to deny the rights of counsel to the people who we represented. You can't do that. Due process, Fifth Amendment rights. You can't violate and take winners and losers. 10th Amendment, equal due process clause. All of the laws. And how are you going to issue such a blatantly unlawful, illegal executive order against a law firm? Their job is to represent clients using law, and you're picking the fights with the law. Similarly, this reminds me, they also sent letters to all these Ivy League institutions threatening to take away their funding if they do DI, to which Georgetown University promptly said, out of here. We are a law training institution, and you're going to come with this BS letter full of like errors and mistakes, and which is a clear violation of the First Amendment, and try to threaten us. Why are you threatening law schools and law firms? And the lawyers who's doing this, is kind of like, shame on y'all. Someone needs to go call. I won't get there. I won't go there. So the judge was like, you can't do that. You can't threaten lawyers. The Trump administration tried to cut this 15% supplemental support for NIH funding, and a judge says, no, you can't do that. Put that back. So that's back. The Quakers successfully got the Trump administration to stop sending their ICE agents into churches. So that was a win. So another district court judge issued a nationwide preliminary injunction blocking an executive order by the Trump administration to stop the resettlement of refugees in the United States, including refugees escaping Christian persecution. So you have a Trump administration with conflicting executive orders. One executive order calls for the examination of anti-Christian bias, and then you have another executive order stopping churches from settling people escaping Christian persecution in other nations into America. So anyway, the Trump administration, despite a preliminary injunction blocking them, have continued to stop the resettlement of refugees. They've appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, where I believe they're going to be denied, and taking up to the Supreme Court. So at some point, I'm going to start tracking the cases that are making their way up to the Supreme Court through the processes. And as I said before, that's the last one I'm going to talk about today, because there's so many. That's enough. As I've said before in different videos, and I've put my predictions out there, I think that Supreme Court is going to block 3 successive Trump administration's attempts to overreach. The first one's going to be the birthright citizenship. As we can see, we didn't get a chance to get the Hampton Dellinger because he withdrew his case before it went up there. But also percolating up the top is the probationary workers is going to be next. The USAID dismantling case. What else? So there's going to be sooner than later 3 to 4 of these cases going to make themselves up to the Supreme Court. If I've predicted in the past, I think that the Supreme Court is going to reject them all. But the first three, I think after three, I believe the Trump administration may get the signal that they're not going to win, that this is a loser. They're not, the Supreme Court doesn't have their back, and they're losing on this. And I'm hopeful that they'll stop appealing, because it's going to be embarrassing at some point, because it's going to be signal. The nail in the coffin is going to be after the third or fourth district. They're hoping to have at least one decision go in their favor, and they're lawless. None of them is going to go in their favor. And to the extent that none of them are going to go in their favor, they're going to realize, okay, so this rogue, aggressive overreach of authority and power that I don't have, I am hoping that the lawyers tell Donald Trump, as we've told you, you have limits of Article 3. You've pushed it because you have yes men, and you have people who are willing, and Plan Bonnie, who's incompetent, I think, who are willing to argue there's these BS, like make these BS claims and arguments that are going to go nowhere, that's not going to win. And you're challenging these conservative judges, as I've said, the conservative justices, you're challenging them and putting them in a bad position to try to like actually contradict themselves within a year. A year ago, you guys were saying that courts can interpret the laws and there's Article 3, a separation of powers. Donald Trump is being on the front, and he's like pushing you guys and saying, no, I have no power. And y'all created this monster, and so you got to rein him in. So I do think they're going to rein him in by having successive opinions of ruling against him. And at some point, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm hopeful that he'll stop and just shift and pivot and do something else. If he doesn't, we'll definitely have a constitutional crisis. And if he doesn't, we'll be in a point where the Congress is going to have to remove him. If you're going to not obey the... Oh, there's a play. There's a play, actually. Yeah, there's a play. I'll think about that later. I'll talk about that in my private community. I like to keep these plays off of public thingy. So, yeah, I just thought of a play. Check out my private community. It's going to be there at some point soon. All right, bye. That's it. So, yay, it was a really great week. Great wins. And, you know, we'll see. There's more cases, but that's enough. This video is long enough. It was like 17 minutes. It's enough. Oh, follow me at JJ Legal. I'm updating my outlasting47.com, which is a tracker. It's a how to survive the Trump presidency if you're a federal worker or you are a undocumented person. But I'm going to shift that document. It's going to be shifted to really focus more on tracking. So I'm going to put the tracker up front, put the surviving stuff in the middle, and to put the bingo in the back, to adjust with the times. So get that. That's a good way you can support me. It's only $7.99. Another way you can support me is by joining my my communities, my membership communities. I have subscribers on TikTok. I put my extra videos there. I also put those extra videos on my membership on YouTube. I put those extra videos in my Substack. It's a paid Substack. So any of those three places, you can get the extra juicy stuff. And I think Patreon, I got to try to figure out how to do. Patreon has a cap, so I'm going to try to figure out how to upload all my secret videos on Patreon. I'm going to tell them, I'm going to send them the link to the Patreon people, say, hey, here's my public videos on YouTube. And then I'm going to say for the private videos, yeah, I'll figure that out. All right. In the meantime, if you're watching this, no matter where you're watching this, I have playlists either here if it's YouTube or here if you're watching this on TikTok or Instagram. Do I have playlists on Instagram? I don't know. I'm not quite sure yet.